Phil McCarthy, General Manager of Rehabilitation at the Corrections Department. You spoke tonight at the Do Something seminar at the Anglican Chaplaincy. You talked about some of the issues such as huge illiteracy rates amongst offenders and a lack of education. What do you suggest to change these rates?
Well, within prisons there is a significant initiative now to address those significant literacy problems that have. I think we've only recently understood the size of the issue. Previous testing that we'd used, I think, suggested a much lower rate of literacy issues, but we now know that 40% of prisoners are functionally illiterate to a point that it significantly impairs their functioning in society, and that many again have significant other literacy issues. So I think we do what we can, but obviously it links to the more general issue of the community and of churches getting in behind to provide more support to prisoners on release to follow that up. Once they're out of corrections jurisdiction, they're out of corrections jurisdiction.
You did discuss some of the successes, such as the fewer escapes and suicides, and positive drug tests are at an all-time low. How was this achieved?
Well, long, careful work over a long period of time. I mean, concerted strategies, resources going in. There have been significant improvements in, I guess, the harder side of prison management around intelligence units, for example, the drug testing regimes and drug dogs. But also we now have 6 drug treatment units across the prison service, which will be helping. And we've always seen it as a combination of both trying to reduce demand with appropriate therapeutic interventions and also controlling supply.
You also outlined what prisons are for: punishment, deterrence, incapacitation, but also rehabilitation. What are some of these techniques, and are they successful?
Well, I think the research indicates that generally prisons don't serve any useful function in deterrence. So they have a punishment function. Clearly that's a role that society asks prison services to perform, but it's very expensive. So we need to, as a society, I think, be clear that we're using those expensive sentences appropriately. Incapacitation is that's keeping the dangerous out of harm's way and ensuring that public safety is promoted, and that's a significant role for the prison service. I think we do that well, and there is no doubt that there is a minority of prisoners who remain actively dangerous, and that incapacitation function is important. But for most, we strive to do what we can with rehabilitation. There are a number of significant, intensive cognitive behavioural programs that are driving to just change the thinking patterns that lead to offending. They couple with a range of prisoner employment activities, and increasingly now we're linking those to the New Zealand qualifications framework, so prisoners are not just mindlessly working, but picking up qualifications that will be useful on release. And over time we're changing the nature of the employment initiatives so that they're more aligned to current labour market needs in a particular area, so that we're no longer having prisoners working in areas where they're no longer going to have no real opportunity of finding a job on release.
You also outlined some of the specialist units, such as the Māori units. You stated, quote, "To succeed overall, we must succeed for Māori." What are some of the initiatives for Māori offenders?
Well, if you're Māori in New Zealand, you're 6 times more likely to be in prison than if you're not Māori. So we have over time put a lot of effort into Māori interventions. The Māori focus units are an intensive tikanga-based environment where Māori prisoners who volunteer to go into the units participate in a range of cultural activities, including language and kapahaka, but also tikanga programs which are designed to have offenders understand how far their offending behaviour is from tikanga, from being correct, being right in Māori terms. And a lot of them kind of have understood their offending as actually a part of being a part of who they are. So the tikanga programs say, no, this is tikanga. This is what it is to be Māori. This is who your ancestors were. This is what the marks on their face and the moko represented for them, and how far you have strayed. So that. And I remember an offender who had committed a particularly horrendous murder of a partner, saying that it was in the focus unit and through the tikanga programs that he realised that women were sacred, women were tapu, and that his whole attitude and mindset, which he had thought was appropriate because of his upbringing, because of the way that he was raised, was a million miles away from who he was and who he needed to be.
And finally, what are some of the options for action, or what can the general New Zealand public do to help offenders from reoffending?
I think two things. Firstly, understand the issues, do some reading, use the Rethinking website, rethinking.org.nz, to get the statistics behind international trends and New Zealand trends in law and order. And then second, in practical terms, the major need is to provide support to prisoners on release. Prison Fellowship has an initiative called Target Communities, which is through which churches are trained and equipped to provide effective support for prisoners on release. But whether it's church-based or in some other way, I think that is the crying practical need, is around prisoner reintegration.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.